Zoom if your camera's on our side, Professor Vargas and myself. So feel free to have camera on or off. And if you have questions on Zoom, just go ahead and go off mute or use the chat, whatever you prefer if there's questions throughout. You guys can just speak up. We're super open, just not formal at all. Just let us know if you have questions.
Oh, yes. So thank you guys for coming and being here, and we thank you for your time and energy and your effort in helping our students get their field hours. We just want to start off with a few definitions that are pretty important and often get confused. So field coordinator is what we do. Marissa and I, we oversee our field programs, BSW and with MSW, and we work with our students to find placements at agencies and do accreditation or credentialing with the agencies. We have field liaisons who are the professors working at CSUP in the classroom, and they have seminar courses with your students. They'll be meeting about twice a month. So you can count on them getting into the classroom and being able to talk with peers and their professors about what's happening in field. Then we have field instructors, or sometimes called supervisors, which represents all of you. And you guys are the ones who are giving them that social work perspective as they're working in the field and learning. Task supervisors occur in agencies where we don't have a social worker who is able to provide supervision or field instruction. And in those cases, if your student has a task supervisor, they're very familiar with the work being done at the agency, but may not be as familiar with social work and what your student should be learning. So I really ask anyone working with task supervisors to make sure you get connected. Maybe have some of the meetings that you have with your student involved with the task supervisor, at least for a check-in, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Then the field agency, that's the agency that we've approved for the students to achieve their required hours for field. Tavera is our online software program where we keep everything field related, learning plans, timesheets, midterm check-ins. And then here you see the learning plan. That initial document your students should be giving to you within the first few weeks of field. Field starts this Monday, August 22nd. We'd like to see those filled out kind of just to get us knowing that you all are talking about possibilities, looking at the 9 competencies and seeing how they happen in your agency. But this initial plan is not final. It will actually turn into a living document, and that one will be the one where you perform the final evaluation, and you'll actually have a column in that one, as well as like a Likert scale at the bottom to rate the student's performance. Title 4E is a stipend program for students that are interested in working child welfare, and Professor Gonzalez pretty much heads that area of our department up. But we do have students involved in both BSW and MSW who get Title 4E.
This is the microphone.
Oh, that's the microphone? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks for letting us know that there was some volume problems. Let us know if that continues. We moved positions a little bit and changed where the microphone's at. So if that's still continuing, let us know. I also was over there. So.
Do you guys need me to use the microphone? Can everyone hear me okay?
He said it was good with you. That's when you were talking.
Oh, okay.
So just to go into a little bit more detail about what we do as field coordinators, we work pretty hands-on with our students at CSU Pueblo. We meet with all of them individually, and we do field interviews to talk about what they think or know that their preferred style of being supervised is, what their interests are, what their work schedules are. And different students have different preferences in where they go for agencies for a variety of reasons. Some students are focused more on what the schedule looks like. And okay, I need only nights and weekends, so it doesn't matter what population I'm working with because I need that because of my life. Some students have this dream agency, dream population. So we really work hands-on with students to try to get them their top 1 or 2 preferred placements as much as we possibly can. It doesn't always work out. There's limits to that. There's only a certain amount of agencies and spots, but we do try to do that. We get the field instructors, you guys, the information that you need, And we hope that you're trusting us, what we're doing, that these students are ready, they're passing their classes. They've had the information that they need to have at a foundational level to go and take that knowledge and practice it in the fields with clients, with their peers, with agencies. And also in social work, this is something we don't always share, I guess, but people always find it, I don't know, comforting or reassuring that that's what students are doing. In social work, you have to maintain a pretty high GPA to go from semester to semester. You might remember that from your own social work days. So they're not coming into field unless they have passed every single class up into that point to get into that field placement. So they do all have that basic foundational knowledge.
In the master's program, that's a B or better. They can't get below a B.
Yes. So, and then we're also doing the same thing on the agency side, making sure that people are credentialed appropriately to supervise students, that there's going to be appropriate work environments and tasks for them to practice that knowledge and get that experience before they graduate. And then we're also, as most or if not all of you know, we're also navigating the paperwork, the contracts, those types of things. So the field liaison is who you're going to get a lot more face time with. That's the person that is teaching the students every week or every month, whatever that looks like. It's different for different programs. So they're in the classroom with them, talking to them about their agency on a regular basis throughout the duration of the internship. So I always tell students, you come talk to me anytime, but it's usually a bad thing if I have to get involved in your field placement once it starts, because we get brought back in if there's an issue, a concern, a disruption of some kind. So it's a good thing if they don't ever have to talk to us during their internship. So the liaison is the person that's going to be coming to your agency. At a minimum, they have to come to the agency once per semester in person, especially now that we're out of some COVID allowances. So one thing is, if your agency still does have restrictions of visitors who can come, if you need certain things to come to your agency, that's really important for that liaison to know up front so that they can do something over Zoom with you if that's what that looks like for your agency. And then there will also be a second visit, but if things are going well, there hasn't been an issue, it might be an email, it might be a quick 5-minute phone call to check in. If there has been some concerns throughout the semester, they will come back in that second time. So minimum, you'll see them 2 times in an internship, which goes over 2 semesters for our school. They're there to support the student, but also the agency. We're going to go in quite a bit of detail about the learning plan and Severa, because that's usually where the bulk of the work is with supervising an intern. That's where you concentrate all of it, is into that document. And so they can help you with if somebody's stuck on what can I do for engaging in diversity in practice. I don't know how to do that in our agency. I don't know how to write about that. They can talk those things through with you. So take advantage of those meetings when they come visit. Are there questions? Are there concerns? Especially because they visit in the first 5 weeks each semester. If there's anything you have questions or concerns about, please tell them, please reach out to us, because we don't want those things to drag on. We see sometimes with agencies, they feel responsible or they think they should be handling it. And then we're getting a few months in or the second semester and something blows up, or everybody's stressed because there's some sort of tension between an intern and an employee or their supervisor. Just let us know so we can help mediate. That's why we are here. That's why the liaisons are here, so that we can help manage those relationships. We don't want this to cause stress. We want this to be a benefit on both sides. We want to take care of the agencies as much as possible. So please just always let us know. That is absolutely why we're here. You're taking on a lot of extra work to take interns, so let us support you. And as I kind of alluded to, we're also here if there's issues that need mediation. So usually the liaison will be the first person, and they're always letting us know, like, hey, we had to have this meeting because there was this ethical concern at the agency with the student, just so you're aware of it. So often it's just handled with the liaison, the student and the agency. But if and when we do need to be brought in, that's what we are also there for, is to just help to try to save the internship always first. Because of the policies we fall under on our side, that is our prerogative, is to save that and get the students all the hours in the same places. But sometimes it really isn't just going to work out. It's just not a good fit at all for some reason, or there might be turnover in the agency and they're saying, this is not a good time for us. There's things that happen. So again, just communicate. Please talk to us. Let us know whenever you have advance notice that there might be an issue or something changing. Let us know that so we can help navigate it. And then some of the general agency responsibilities when it comes to having an intern. You have an agreement with us. If it's an unpaid field placement, the agreement is, one of the biggest parts of the agreement is that we are liable for the student. It's similar to like a workers' comp situation. We're requiring the student to do that placement. We're giving them credit for it. So if they get hurt in the agency, something happens, what have you, there's a liability covered on our end. If it's a paid placement of any kind, whether it's because they're an employee, whether you have a paid internship program, some agencies give stipends for this semester, even if it's like $500 for the whole semester, it's still a paid agreement and the agency takes on liability, same as they would for employees. So that's the main part of that contract. The other pieces of it, has a description, a general agreement of these are the things that the student's going to be able to meet in our agency, the dates, those types of things. And then agencies are responsible for supervising. So some agencies do have offsite social work supervision. That's fine. We should have navigated that already together. But so whoever's supervising the student, it should just be clear. If it's a task supervisor, so a non-social work person, or a social worker, who that is, who the student should be going to on a weekly basis. As the social work supervisor should be meeting with the student once per week, doing a check-in and assisting the student in creating that learning plan, which we're going to go over in a couple minutes here. We offer these orientations at the beginning of every fall semester, just for new people, refresh people, others in the agency that maybe have contact with interns, to just let you all know where we're at, updates on policies, connect with one another, those types of things. And then we also ask that agencies onboard students. This is something that does get missed a lot. And I have students come to me saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know who I'm supposed to be talking to. I don't know where the manuals are, those types of things. Treat it really similarly to an employee. There's some things, it might just be a waste of time for you to do because they're not an employee or that they really don't need to know, but be aware, like, do they know our emergency protocols? Do they know if I'm out of the office, who the next person is they're supposed to go to? Do they know when all the staff meetings are? Talk to them about the office culture. What should they be dressing like? What should they be, what are the expectations about cell phones? Are people on it? Is it more casual? Is it a really strict environment? Leave the cell phone at home, in your car, those types of things. Just try to orient the student to the agency. And then complying with our site visits and the documents that we ask you to sign and complete with the students. Because part of that agreement is stating this is what we're going to do in our partnership together. And then this will be shared on our field webpage, this whole training. And we'll also share it in the email and or to Vera, how you were getting the invites for today. So here's some links to all of our field manuals where it has detailed information. And you can always reach out to us to check on something, but you can get the information here as well if you prefer.
So I just have a quick question. Can you on Zoom give me some sort of signal if you have supervised students in the field before as a field instructor and in the room? Can you just raise your hand if you already have? Okay, so a lot of you already know, there's a chat, sorry. Okay, thank you. A lot of you already kind of know this next slide, but there's a lot of things to expect when you have a student working in field. There's going to be the one-on-one interactions. They're going to learn things about group dynamics, the ins and outs of the agencies, sort of the things that Marissa was just referring to. They're going to get a chance to do some networking within the agency and oftentimes in the community and with other agencies, as well as that engagement, interventions, assessments, and evaluations. And those are all parts of the learning plan that you'll go over. Opportunities are there to enhance the student's understanding and ability to act as a professional. To me, that's a huge one because I know a lot of our students, this is their first time in a professional position. So it's really good to set that modeling example, but also So like point it out and talk about it when they're doing it well, and when you see it well in someone else, or when you have something that might be, hey, you might want to dress like this tomorrow for this event. Just little cues that they may not be aware of would be super helpful. Then of course, the learning curves with biases, triggers, cultural awareness. A lot of our students may not have really, especially I work with generalist students, and so they're coming from a lot of different backgrounds into an MSW program, but like I've had accounting students and students from psych or criminology, music, art. So they may not have spent a lot of time in self-reflection, self-awareness, or thinking about biases, implicit bias, explicit. So those students especially, this is a time for them of great learning in that area. They'll do it in the field, and they'll also be focusing on it in classrooms.
Oh, so that share one thing. Okay. I also just want to clarify quickly about BSW versus MSW, because a lot of you supervise both. So there are slight differences in the learning plans and the documents that they fill out. There's a slight difference in the hours. So we'll look at those things a little bit more too. But then the master's program, well, okay, first, when we talk about professionalism and things like that, most often the BSW students, they really are not going to have had any kind of exposure to practice experience. We have very few students who are in professional-less type jobs already, or in agencies where they can see some of that and observe some of that and learn it. So they are really starting green a lot of the time. That's actually why I prefer bachelor students. I really like that greenness, because they're also usually pretty open to feedback and what they're doing. So that is often a difference. It can absolutely apply to master's students too, but that's often a difference to just keep in mind. I've seen supervisors kind of get stuck in that before, like, well, this student's doing this and this is doing that. Well, that one did intakes with a drug and rehab facility for 5 years first, and this student has never had a job in their life. They're completely different students. They need completely different supervision and feedback at that point. BSW or MSW, it doesn't really matter. The other piece of it, Calico mentioned generalists. So we have, like most social work programs, we have two master's programs, the generalist and the advanced standing. Advanced standing means they're with us for 1 year and they have a bachelor's degree in social work. The generalist program, they have a bachelor's degree in something else. It could be anything. It could be in arts. It could be in criminal justice. It does not matter what it is. They can get into the generalist program if they still meet all the other requirements. So they're with us for 2 years. So the generalists, they're not coming from social work background. That's also where I see people not understanding like why they maybe aren't quite as ready, or they don't have certain information. They only take classes for 1 semester before starting their internship concurrently with the rest of their classes. So their first year as a generalist is really kind of like a crunched up bachelor's year. They're getting all of that foundational information. And then they move into the second year and they're joining the advanced standing students who are in the 1-year program. So that's also something to just keep in mind and know which program your student is in, so that you're understanding like, okay, they don't have quite as much as this student, like, and that's why they haven't had that class yet. They literally do not know that information. So I just wanted to be sure to point that out, because it's not something everybody knows if you're not on the higher ed side of things, but that's big differences between those students.
And if you have a student that you're going to be supervising in the master's program this fall, starting Monday, they are in the advanced standing program. So they already have a Bachelor of Social Work degree and they're coming in for 1 year. The students that she's talking about, the generalists, like I will have all of them in class this semester. They take things like Intro to Social Work, ethics, diversity, I think an introduction to like policy and research, and one other thing. But it's very foundational. And then next semester in January is when they go to field. So just so you have an idea about that. Also in class, your teachers, at least on the MSW side, they'll be giving opportunities for case presentations, program evaluation, community assessments. Like they'll have a variety of things where they're actually going to use in class what they're learning with you in the field. So that's good to know also. And I would encourage students, I'm always telling students to research. A lot of people say they don't like research and they're in social work, but how do you know if what you're going to do is effective if you're not going to look at the literature at all and see who else is doing it? even, I know I worked in an agency once that it wasn't a very reliable assessment for suicide that we were using. And nobody really knew that because nobody had researched it before. So things like that are important for our students to start getting under their belt and realize that our field does rely on science and research, and they'll do a lot better for you that way as well.
I'll add to that, that at a minimum in field classes, they're expected to do certain research or certain evaluations, and oftentimes they're making it up. So know that they're doing assignments in relation to their field placement. If there's something your agency needs done in that regard, you might be able to do it with the student or assign it to the student. Like, take advantage of that time rather than them making up a survey that they would do because they see, oh, this might be a question I ask these students. Let them know, we really are going to look at this, create this survey, we're really going to send it out. Take advantage of that, right? Get more out of that. They're doing the work anyway, so if it can actually go somewhere and support your clients, that's all the better.
So look for opportunities too where you can help them advance human rights, social and economic and environmental justice. This is something that we're moving into a little bit more with new standards coming out, but just seeing if your agency isn't really doing those things, maybe it's something that your student can help you evaluate, like how are we as an agency looking at human rights, or what's going on in the environment where our people are living. Also find the opportunities to engage in anti-racism activities. This is part of the new standards, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And those things also, if there's opportunities even in the community where maybe you guys can set up a table and go be a part of something, I would say try to get your students involved. I mean, we need to do more than just talk about these things in social work. Putting feet and hands to them and getting students the opportunities to see how it happens and what they can actually do is really important. Then the support from your professors in the classrooms. I know we kind of went over this already, but that site visit should happen in the first 5 weeks. You will be working with your student on that learning plan in the first 3 weeks. There's a midterm check-in. We have 16 weeks, so it should be around 7 to 9 weeks that there'll be a form in Tavera for you to really simple. The student makes like a statement about their work in the field. They rate themselves on a scale of, I think, 1 to 3. Then you have the same opportunity below them. And it's just a way to check in and see how they're doing halfway through. Then if there's any concerns you have, your field liaisons that you're working with should be happy to respond and help through those things. And then again, end of semester might be a visit if things weren't going super well. Could be an email, could be a phone call, but just know that you do have access to the professors that your students are working with, and we do want you to take advantage of that.
So to get a little bit more into detail about the learning plan document. So the learning plan comes in 2 pieces each semester. So they're going to have 2 of these in full, 1 each semester. So how it's split up is first the learning plan, which in the first couple of weeks, they should just be putting in there what they might be doing that semester. This is not a contract. It's not, if they don't do one of those things on there, they're not getting penalized in any way. It's to get them talking to the agency and get themselves oriented quickly. That's why it's due so soon. It's not what they did do. You don't have to create or make up anything. That document can be really basic, but it should be getting them talking, asking questions so they're understanding the agency a little bit more and what they might do in each of the sections of the learning plan. And the sections of the learning plan are broken into the core competencies of social work practice. So that's through the first 3 weeks. You're working with the student on that, whether it's the task supervisor or the social worker, and then everybody signs off. And as the field coordinators, we review those at the end and say that's maybe appropriate, or this is a little bit too lax of a document. This isn't really telling me anything, because we want them to have a good idea of what is coming, what they might be doing with the agency. So again, if you put facilitate groups on there and that group doesn't end up going, that's fine. We don't need to make up a group or go back and fix this or anything. It's just to get them started with what they might be participating at the agency. And then the second document is where they track their activities. So it's gonna, once that first part is signed off on, it'll transfer into a second document. So you'll see all of that original information. And then all through the whole rest of the semester, the student's responsible for tracking everything they're doing. If I was to print this document, it should be like 40 or 50 pages long. This is an extensive document. And different professors want that to come to them a little bit different ways. So you might see differences there if you have multiple students, but overall, we should be seeing exactly what they're doing for each competency, whether they went to staff meetings or they're doing intakes, or they talk about a situation with a client where they were challenged in regards to one of the competencies. It's kind of like a journal. So they work on that all semester. Use supervision to check on that. Use that document. That gives you a place to start with talking and seeing how things are going. Or if they don't have anything in one of the sections, talk about what can we do in our agency to help get you that exposure. Some sections are going to have tons of things in them. Some might be, you might really struggle to find something. That's just the nature of different organizations. These do not all need to be equal, as long as they've gotten exposure and experience in all of those areas. So that's a living document for the duration of the semester, and it's turned in usually like 2 to 3 weeks before the end of the semester. They should be finishing it up and sending it on to you all to review in Tavera and sign off on, like, yep, the student did this. And that's also where at the end of each semester, you will have a chance to rate them on each competency and also put in comments in there as well. And so we've been talking about the competencies, and a lot of them you'll see it says same next to the competency. The ones where it doesn't, those are updated. And NASW, National Association of Social Workers, and CSWE, the Council on Social Work Education, they work in tandem on these things. We have the same competencies for both in education and in the professional side of social work. So these are the same things. So these are updated and changed in the competencies across both. This isn't just a higher education thing. So this also has an impact on your job, and it should be impacting our agencies and what we do different and how we focus on things differently as social workers. And these are brand new changes that just came out officially a month ago. So these are just the rest of the competencies. I didn't really, so that, again, this is how the learning plan is broken down. So demonstrating ethical and professional behavior. One where I see folks ask a lot of questions is the practice-informed research one. This does not mean that they need to change the nature of your agency through their research, okay? This could be that they are writing a paper for class about a topic that is to do with your agency, and they talked to people, they looked at your manuals, they looked at your history. Like, this can be very, very entry level and basic to a point, as long as they're getting some of that exposure. Or maybe somebody did research on behalf of your agency to get some grant funding. Maybe you can provide that to them to read and see what that looked like, and what that grant funder was looking at from your agency to decide if you were going to get that money. There's a lot of different things you can do. So always reach out to us if you and the student are stuck, and use that field liaison meeting for how can we address this competency. And then engaging with individuals, families, groups, orgs, communities, and doing that on all levels: engagement, assessment, intervention, and evaluation. This is again where they might be doing an intake internship. So they're going to see a lot of one of these things and not a lot of others. So you might have to be intentional to make sure they have some of that exposure. Doesn't have to be equal across the board, just as long as they're understanding the full process and how we work with clients. And then this is just an example of what that first learning plan looks like. So on the left-hand side is what they see in the document as kind of an example of this competency and how they might do it. And then this is where the student was tracking, this is how I can do this in this agency this semester. So they haven't started tracking their activities on this one yet. So if everyone says, this is good, this makes sense for this agency, the next document will have a third column where they're tracking all semester long what they're doing. And then the other piece of it will be timesheets. So learning plan and timesheets are the main things you'll be doing in Tavera, and that you'll have regular contact with as a supervisor. So every week the student should be submitting timesheets to you with their hours, and you're verifying to us as the professional that they did indeed do those hours. And they're also breaking those hours down to the competencies. This does not have to be an exact science. If you're like, I don't think you did 2 hours in diversity and social work practice, I think you only did a half hour. Like, we really are not micromanaging it that seriously. It's more about, we're seeing, when we see the totals at the end, if there's a bunch of columns that have 0 and the other ones have 80 hours, okay, how can we talk about this first to break it down? Because I'm sure this is more broken down than what you're putting in your timesheet. And also it's just another checkpoint of you are getting exposure in all of those. One column might have 2 hours by the end of the semester and the other one 100. That's okay, that's how it goes. We just want to see that there was some variety for them. And then the BSW students and the generalists, so those 2-year folks that don't have a social work degree, they do 448 hours total in 2 semesters. Because we changed, we added a week to the academic calendar for the university. It's 15 hours a week should be the average now. It was 16 before, 16 for a really long time, and it is 15 now. So that's a little bit of a tweak to that. And then the advanced standing students, they should be doing 16, 17 hours a week to get their 500 total hours in 2 semesters. And they do have to get half of that at a minimum in 1 semester. It can't be, I got 200 this semester, I'll get 300 next semester. They have to get the 224 or the 250, whichever program they're in order to pass the class and go to the next semester, because we're grading and giving credits on our side according to those hours. So that has to happen. And then if you haven't seen it, this is an example of what it will look like when you get a timesheet sent to you in your Tavera. You'll get it in your assignment section, or the copy of it will also come to your inbox that you have a task waiting for you. And you'll just check it. You'll say, yep, they did all these hours. That makes sense to me. And you'll sign off on it. And then it goes to the field liaison. The timesheets come once a week.
And it can be a good place too for your supervision time together when you can see what activities they're checking off on their lists. I wanted to bring up, how many of you guys are used to changes and things taking a little bit of time to make full effect when you have something change? Yes, no, yes. Most of us are as social workers. So just so you know, those standards that change that we have already told you what they are not fully in effect yet and don't have to be. So you won't see that exact wording on the learning plans that exist in Tavera. We're going to be working on making those changes through this year. And our website, I'm not even sure if our website's updated on the hours yet, because that's something new as well. So don't panic. Go by what we're telling you here. If you don't see it everywhere else yet, it's because we're just trying to get a little bit ahead and prepare. So are we going to turn these on?
So at the end, if there's a lot of Tavera questions or somebody wants a little bit more, we can watch these, or we can help you specifically with your Tavera if you would like. A lot of people on here have been using Tavera for a while, so I don't want to do that to everybody. But again, we will make this accessible to you, this presentation, and you'll see these links on here. These are new things that Tavera put out, so they're really helpful that it's videos showing you exactly how to navigate your Tavera and sign things and where to find different things.
You can go back to this again and again if you need to, which is what makes it nice, in my opinion. So some CSWE changes. Students are now allowed to do field placements that are employment-based. So the employment-based field must be approved by the field coordinator, and the agency must also be okay with it. It's important to still have a separate person that's overseeing the work that the student's doing for the agency as an employee and what their field work is as a social worker. One, again, providing field instruction, and one is a job supervisor. That way there's no dual roles. It's important that the students still have an internship opportunity, even if the employer terminates the employment. So that can be worked out a lot of times, because students would have a job at an agency, they did something with the job that wasn't great, but the agency could still use them working and getting some hours for field. If that's at all possible, that's a best win-win situation for everyone, because our student can keep learning without a roadblock. You guys still have some extra hands. If it's not possible, we can't obviously force that to happen, but we don't want to see this turning into something negative that seems so positive right now. And then employment-based field requires additional steps in the process that involves extended time served with the agency, to additional contracts between the student and the agency outside of what's provided by our university, and a paid MOU between CSUP and the agency as opposed to that unpaid. And Marissa explained that's because of the general liability insurance that goes with the unpaid positions, whereas the paid, it's expected that the agency cover that. The field supervision still can be done in various ways. So you all are able to meet your students online in Zoom. You could have phone calls, you can meet in groups. We do ask that you try to meet with students individually at least once a month, because I know I've had students who just feel like maybe not as comfortable talking in a group setting, and they can get a little bit more vulnerable with what they're experiencing on that one-on-one time. Does that make sense to everyone? Do you guys have any questions about any of this online or in the room?
We're about employment-based questions so far in general, but if there's something about employment-based, we have been getting a lot of questions about that. To clarify, if you haven't supervised before, it's been a while, we didn't do a lot of employment-based a couple years ago. Then COVID, CSWE really opened up the rules and policies for employment-based, so offered folks a lot more opportunity. I absolutely support it. It's a lot more equitable when we can make it happen. Instead of having people essentially doing free labor on top of everything else they're doing in life, right? I mean, I wish I would have had an employment-based field placement when I was getting my degrees.
Yes.
But these are permanent changes now. It was temporary before, along with those competency changes that came out officially a few weeks ago. This is a permanent CSWE change. So if you've been dealing with the employment-based with us, you're seeing what all of those new changes look like, because we knew that was coming. So those things are already in place if you have a paid student.
It also means that your student is allowed to count their work hours for a field, but it doesn't mean is they can say, okay, I already hit my 250 hours and I'm done. We insist that they still do the entire semester. And I explain to students, you're going to learn a lot more over the course of 2 months than you will 2 days. And so kind of keeping that open mind that, yeah, I'm in here for the long haul, so I can have as much experience as possible, even if I'm allowed to count 40 hours. So,
yes. I think most of the liaisons doing the classroom work are like, they're not even letting them put a lot of the times more than the 15 or 18 hours on the timesheet, because they want to see the consistency. And yeah, it's not that you're done in a month and you have to do timesheets or anything anymore. That's not the case.
no. All right, so we do, and it's in this is the MSW field manual page, and some of these slides do have page numbers there reflecting the MSW manual. But there is a protocol to follow if the agency has concerns, and it's outlined here. Bringing the issue to the student's attention first. We do the same thing for our students. We ask them, bring your issue to the person that you're having the issue with first. That's good professional behavior, and try to resolve the problem that way. If it's not working out that way, by all means, contact the field liaison or the classroom professor, and that person will then get involved. So we have a different system within our programs that we use. We have a level 1 referral where a student will get advised by their advisor, sent to an advisement time with their advisor so that they can go over any kind of problem that might be occurring or an issue that they're having. And we try to help them get on a better plan and make sure that this doesn't continue. So if the student's performance doesn't get better with our level 1 review, then we'll do a level 2, and it just brings more people in. And I like to say it's like wraparound services. They're getting more people involved that can give them support and help them get on a good path. And then we have level 3. And oftentimes if you reach a level 3 as a student, we're kind of wondering, should you consider maybe a different path for your career? So hopefully we don't have a lot of those. So far, I haven't had a lot of those. But if the student's performance isn't improving after you've followed talking with the student, talking with the liaison, and we've done what we need to, then we bring the field coordinators in as well. And that's when Marissa was talking that we usually don't hear from students again once we get them set in a placement, and that's a good thing. But if we do have a problem, please don't hesitate to ask us to be brought in. We will show up and go from there. But that is kind of the chain of command. And we really went over this in our orientation with students this year too, to make sure they understood the importance of following the process.
The other thing I'll add that we should probably put on this is just if there was some sort of a more extensive concern, and maybe it's with a liaison even, or with one of us, or there's just a clash, whatever that looks like, we also then can have options to go to our department chair for the social work program, to talk to our dean. Never in 5 years gotten to the dean level, so let's try to not go to the dean level, please. But you know, sometimes agencies or supervisor, they just want to talk to somebody else. They're not feeling heard, they're that frustrated, whatever it is, but you have full access to that information. We can get that to you. It's on our website. So you can always talk to our chair too, if you feel like more mediation is needed.
Yeah, we do ask that you still do follow the line of, because our chairs often have a lot of stuff going on. You might even want to go to the program coordinator. I don't know, before the chair. Possibly. We have a lot of levels.
Getting complicated.
But yeah, we should probably add something about that. Any questions on any of this? Concerns?
So just some safety in the field, things to keep in mind with students. And this is an exact slide that we go over in a lot of detail with students too, because again, this is the first time for a lot of our students at all levels that they're having to deal with any of these things. Just planning, if you're doing home visits, if you're in any kind of personal spaces with your clients, do you have allergies that you need to be aware of when you're doing these things? What is the surroundings of your home visit being? I share examples a lot from when I used to work in a homeless shelter, how my office had been set up, and I ended up there was a physical altercation and I was completely stuck, and I never thought about my office setup before that time. And I was completely cornered and boxed in, and where our offices even were in the building, completely kind of remote and on my own in this unsafe situation. So just having an awareness of your surroundings and the populations that you're working with and what risks there might potentially be for yourself. You know, do you need a second person there? Do you need to do it in a more public space than a home visit? Just having all of that awareness as they enter the field. What the emergency protocols are at the agency. Where are the fire exit? What happens if a client threatens me? What do I do with that information? So again, that's part of that onboarding piece and making sure everyone's safe, but in this situation, making sure students are safe and they know all of that, because it's so easy to miss it when it's an intern versus an employee who's going through a formal HR process. The social media, email, mobile phones, all of that, what are the policies and expectations at your agency? I tell students every year, I said, don't be the one that I get a cell phone Facebook call about. Don't be the one, because you like me right now. We're not going to be friends if that happens. Stay off of it. We're telling them to stay off of it. Don't even have your phones unless it's necessary for your field placement. You know, you're there to be a learner. You might even see a little bit different culture of what the folks around you are doing, but you're there as a learner and a student. That's their culture. That's their professional environment. They have their standards. Just stay away from it. Unless you're saying, I love my internship, it's the best. That's the only thing I ever want to hear about on your social media account. Don't say anything else, because it will get back to the agency or it will get back to me. It's constantly happening. So I'm just like, stay away from it. So that's what they're hearing from us, just so you know, because those phone calls just really irritate me. Students cannot transport clients. Under any circumstance, they should not be driving agency vehicles at all. If they're an employment base with a paid, that's why we have the liability, how we have it, right? If they're getting paid and they're an employee and they're on your insurance and everything, that's a different story. But they otherwise should not be doing any kind of driving of clients whatsoever. We talked about the insurance already, that's in place as a safety net if needed. Students cannot begin field without the MOU being in place, because again, we just want to make sure everybody's covered if something were to happen. And then any requirements your agency has, you know, if we get into the hospice, clinic, hospitals, students have to get a long list of shots and submit documentation on vaccines that they have. A lot of places are still under COVID policies in different ways that you need to be vaccinated or you're masking in certain situations. Make sure they know that so that they're prepared before they start hours in the agency. And then just any other crisis protocols, like let's say there was a COVID shutdown again or something, those types of things. What is that going to look like? And hopefully we don't ever have to deal with this again, but does your agency have at least a minimal backup plan for an intern if we got shut down again for COVID or some other reason? How can hours maybe still be completed not being inside of the agency? Did you have a question, Barb?
Yeah, I did. Does the school have any kind of COVID protocols? Like, are you requiring students to wear masks when they go to their internship or anything?
So the question in the room was about if CSU has COVID protocols at all. And we have right now you have to be vaccinated or you have to apply through our clinic on campus for an exemption if you are not going to be vaccinated. Otherwise, we're not requiring masks on campus. And we're not telling students what to do in agencies other than you have to follow the agency protocol. Like we're not giving exemptions for anything, you know, and students have tried that in the last 2 years, like, oh, my agency is requiring masks. Like, can you tell them I'm not going to? I'm like, nope, that's not my agency. They can make whatever, you can make whatever rules you want for your staff and interns to follow. So we're deferring to the agency for all of those things. That is the end of what we had to share. So we have time absolutely for questions. We can go over to Vera stuff more if you want to ask a group question, or we can hang out for a little bit and answer individual, like if you spotted a problem on your account or something like that. Try to ask it in the group first, if that's okay, because it might be something somebody else is thinking or experiencing that might help somebody else. Otherwise, if not, we thank you for your time. Yes, question in the room.
They use it with other universities.
Mhm.
Do you know if it's like individual to a university and to a student, or is it like a large system that has some
We just experienced
We
this.
just experienced, so, okay, so the question in the room was someone supervising a student from another university that also uses Tavera. And yesterday, for the first time, we had a student who's going to be starting field, not for another semester, but she used Tavera in her bachelor's program at another school. And I know that it's like a lifelong program, but we don't have control over connecting those things. So Tavera was able to connect her to our school. So I would imagine it's very similar for supervisors, so that you wouldn't have to have two accounts. So I don't have an official answer for that, but we can absolutely talk to our admin folks at Tavera, and they're really quick, and they're really, we really like Tavera because they're just so good on the other side of things, of getting things fixed. So I can't imagine that there's not a way of connecting that, so you don't have to manage two things.
I didn't have difficulty signing in. I was just wondering if it's like, is it Tavera account follows the supervisor, the school, or the student? You see what I'm saying?
It has to get changed by them internally. So like that student who had an account somewhere else, I can't see that. I can't search it and pull it up. Tavera had to connect her to us.
If I can speak to that a little bit, I graduated from the MSW program like 3 years ago, and as a student, I used Tavera. When I became a supervisor over students, it's not like it tried to recognize me as a student. It just, because, you know, my name was the same, but
That's because I would have went in and switched you
yeah.
to a
Yeah.
different role.
We're able to give people roles as the coordinators. And so if you we're allowed to use like the same, like you could give us the same email address that you gave the other agency, and that may have something to do with it too. I don't know. But
Thank you.
And Tavera, are they gonna remind us, or do we have to start looking at it now? The messages and the tasks to be completed, do they go only through Tavera, so we have to check it, or are they gonna email us? to remind us?
So
can set it up.
the question in the room was, will Tavera give reminders of the tasks that are due, or is it only in Tavera? Part of that is settings and your emails. For some, you should get the reminders, but you can also turn that on and off if you just want to check Tavera. For some people, it goes right to their junk mail, and that's kind of how your work is set up and your security settings and things like that. And the students also should just be talking to you, right? Like, hey, my learning plan's due next week, so I'm going to be sending that off to you. And the timesheets are going to be every single week consistently. Does that answer your question? Okay. There's some questions in the chat. So for Kristen Brown, I see you asked if this was going to be available. This will get emailed out with the copy of the recording, and so it'll get emailed and put into Tavera. And then Bree asked, will we get login information if you're new to the system? Whichever field coordinator, I'm not sure.
She's mine.
Okay, so your field coordinator will set you up in Tavera, and then Tavera sends you a login. So if you haven't gotten anything,
It's
reach out to
sometimes-
Calico.
Yeah, sometimes they go to junk mail and they do kind of expire. So I know that you didn't receive that. It looks like yet, Bree, so I'll make sure that I get you one sent out again today.
And New Leaf is asking for a copy instead of Recon. Yes, Kristen. And then Julie asked, you supervised a student 2 years ago, is Tavera better now? Definitely. So when I started my job, like 2 weeks into the semester, I don't even know what year, 17 or 18, they're like, here, implement this whole system. It was definitely rough for a while. And then they're like, hey, implement a master's program too for field. Okay, it definitely works so much better now. We really have very, very few issues with it. It's honestly usually user error on one side or the other. Like if we forget to click one little thing on our side, a document won't work. But if you tell us it's not working, I can go in pretty quickly and fix it. So it does work pretty smoothly overall. It saves so much paper. You don't have to get together to sign off on these things. It's just right there at your fingertips when you're ready to look at things and sign things. So I personally like it. Yes, it was rough a few years ago, for sure. I don't feel the same about it anymore. Any other questions? Yes.
Mine might be really specific just to what's going on with mine, but I have this task that's been assigned to me and it has it under current tasks. And I put my signature on it, but it didn't move to completed tasks. It's staying under current tasks. And I wasn't sure if I needed to tell the student to go in and sign it, and that was part of my role, or if,
Can I look?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be.
So the question in the room was about seeing it, signing off on a task, but not seeing it as completed. And Calico is going to take a peek at it. I'm guessing what it is that the person who signs after you just hasn't signed it yet. So it's not being marked as completed. You should never be getting a task. Like you can't see anything the student does until they sign it. And that's them saying, I'm ready for my supervisor to see it, and it will forward them to you. And once you sign something, it automatically in Tavera comes to the next person, whether it's the liaison or whether it's the coordinators.
This is supervisor information form.
Oh, probably because one of us hasn't signed off. Me, probably. I haven't signed it yet. Yeah, if you've signed something into there, it won't let you sign unless you've done what you're supposed to do on that form. Bye, thanks for coming.
Right below him, it's asking for student signature.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just waiting on that next person to do a signature.
okay, I just wasn't sure if I needed to tell the student to go in because there's this next signature on the line, if I needed to tell her to go do
Yeah.
that, or if she gets a notification if she has to do something.
They didn't
They
start
will.
school yet. They start Monday.
Okay,
So it may be that they aren't really checking Tavera yet. Some of them may not even understand Tavera really yet, and they'll be
Okay.
learning that this week.
gotcha.
So yeah, that's probably why.
Okay, I'm just a step ahead, that's no worries. Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions in the chat or in the room at all? Again, if not, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate all the effort, all the time everyone spends with our interns. So thank you,
Thank
and
you.
reach out if you need anything at all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.